I thought I'd go deeper into some of the combinations that can show up in someone's chart. So, yes, this can apply if you're a Cancer sun or a Leo sun, but the more of these two signs that you have in your chart, and I don't just mean the houses, I'm talking about if you have these two signs in your big three or your big six, what basically happens with this is that these two are the most devoted signs. They're the luminaries. They're the only two luminaries out of the all 12 signs. So, of course, the moon is connected to Cancer and the sun connected to Leo. They light up the sky, whether it's night or day. But both are an energy source. They shine, they glow. So there's a level of like pull to these two signs. It creates this kind of warm, safe sort of feeling, being seen. It can also be unsafe and not by the intent of Cancer and Leo, but it can feel like you're being exposed because it shows things that other signs don't because they glow. So that can be both calming and like all encompassing and safe and all these wonderful things, or it can just be unnerving because now you feel like you're being seen, you're being exposed, and that's uncomfortable, especially if you're not comfortable with what's inside, like you're not happy about it and you don't want other people to see it. There's some really interesting things that come also, like if you, for instance, have these two signs in your big three. One of the really obvious things, again, it's going to depend on where you have these two signs in the big three, but because the rising sign has to do with setting up your first house. So that's what you look like. So if you have one or both of these signs in this area, you're going to look like the sign that it's related to. Now, when it comes to Cancer, that shows more of like, again, it's kind of twofold. One side is that it's very moon-like, it's very sort of soft and squishy and kind of round, it can have kind of a round face. There's kind of a glow to the skin, like kind of a healthy softness. These kinds of things come through. It can also be that this person's more crab-like. I know that probably sounds kind of weird, but not as soft, not as squishy. Maybe a little bit more worried, a bit more careful, a bit more on edge. And again, ready to make a quick escape. They can also seem more agile, if that makes sense. They're quicker on their feet. You know what I mean? A bit more active looking because they have to be quick to protect themselves. So it can kind of show these two ways. With Leo, there's like a feline quality. So it kind of cat-like. This can be with coloring, features, whatever. Again, in the moon, it's going to appear this way as far as your emotional state, your feelings. And then with your sun, it's your ego. With Mars and Venus, it's the way that you show up for love, relationships, and attraction. And if it's in Mercury, it's to do with how you communicate. So again, the first three are more personal to you, and the other three added to the big six, it's more about areas of your life or how you show up, like in relationships or whatever. So again, it sort of shows, and like I've said before, I think it's really important to understand if you are a person who has a lot of these two signs in your chart, you need to be very, very careful who you decide to couple with. So Leo wants someone who's just as devoted, just as willing to give attention, validation, care, these kinds of things as Leo is. This is a form of reciprocation. This is deep love. This is attraction. And this is what a Leo needs in relationships. So if you're not able to do that in a real, authentic way, like what Leo requires, personally, I'd say just bow out. Because that's what they're going to need, that's what they're going to expect, and if you can't provide that, they will go elsewhere to find it. That's just how it is. They want their person, but if you're not their person, they will pack up and go. And there isn't much you can do because you can't match them where they need it. And that's fair enough, because they're willing to give just as much as they take. And so, like everyone, you should get what you require in relationships. With Cancer, it's harder because once they attach, they can't walk away as easily. So if you consistently don't meet them where they need you to, it's painful for them each time. And each time that happens, they start to shut off. But it depends on how all in they are. But eventually they will shut off and shut you out, because it becomes self-preservation then. Both of these signs will preserve and protect themselves because they have so much to give. And again, if we're not dealing with people, two people, or multiple, doesn't matter, who have a lot of Cancer and Leo, the one who has it won't get their needs met by the ones who don't. And this can be very painful and resentment inducing on the part of the Cancer Leo person. So it's really important to know this. That's why I think astrology is so important, to know the traits and the qualities, because if you're a person who has these, you need people who are all in. And if they're not, it's just going to be a painful mess, and it's going to be painful to you. Same thing on the flip side. If you're a person who, yes, you're enamored, yes, you're drawn to this energy, people are, but if you can't match them there, then you need to leave them for someone who can. And this is the thing I think that happens, is people enjoy the attention, they enjoy the love that these two signs give. And I can understand why, but it will bite you in the end. You can't just take and take and take from someone who's as giving and loving as these two signs are and think there won't be consequences. One day they will be gone. And at the end of the day, it's totally fine. If you can't match them, that's understandable, that's how it is, but you need to bow out. These are not the signs that you do this to. It's not okay. They're too caring, too loving, too giving. And with people who can't give in return, it is too much and it's not fair. So it is an important thing to know when you're dealing with it. And they both want a consistent all-in partner. So if you're a bit 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out, you can't consistently match them there. You can't be there for them the way that they need. Well, leave them to find someone who can. Right? At the end of the day, these two signs deserve that. You might have had some instances where you had to deal with low vibration Leo and Cancer, and I don't dispute that wouldn't be as good, that's for sure, not very good. But high vibration, these two often don't get the love that they require in return. People are happy to take it, but they don't give it. And the situation is again, if you don't have a lot of these two signs, you can't give that level. You don't have it in you. It's not part of what you are and who you are. And that's okay. It's not wrong or evil. You can't be held responsible for something you're not capable of. But that's why it's so important that knowing astrology can help and save you from these types of experiences, because when you know someone's chart, you can go, okay, so this person has a lot of Cancer and Leo and this person doesn't. They have a lot of signs that are not devoted, that are kind of wishy-washy, fickle, in and out, not dependable. It's not going to end well. Cancer and Leo need signs that can match them, who can be there. It's the most important. Again, I think there's every single combination, and a lot of times it's the combination of the two signs next to each other. It creates an interesting dynamic. I did go through this as a series on TikTok, not all of them, but I did a few. But I think it's important to talk about this one. I think it's important to talk about all of them, but this one in particular, because of the devotion. There's just no other signs that match them here. And so if you have both of them, it's a double up. It's just that much more potent, and so you have to be so careful. Every single one of these, the two signs next to each other, double ups in a chart, there can be things that work really well, and there can be things that are really challenging and kind of at odds and opposing. It can also be that because there's so many things that are similar, that can cause issues too, because it's too much of a good thing becomes not such a good thing. But that's where these two really, they do it differently. One is warming, like the sun. It's encouraging, it's supportive, it's your biggest cheerleader, your biggest support system. That's Leo. The other one is your biggest emotional safe space, I guess. The person that you can tell anything to, that's safe, giving, loving, understanding, holding space for you, right? And again, if you can't match these two signs, it's just painful for them. It's just painful because it's take, till neither one of these signs have anything left to give. And then you wonder when you didn't give anything near in return. And this is a very, very difficult thing to have to face when it comes to these two signs. So it's worthwhile knowing where you have these two placements, especially if it's in your big six or your big three, because these themes are going to hit your life on a regular basis. It's not just it's in one of your houses in that particular area you're going to be affected by it. This is, especially with your big three, this is who you are as a person. And so it's very important to understand what and who is worth your level of devotion. And it's not a superiority thing, it's nothing like that. It's just the understanding of, will this situation, will this person be as reciprocal to me as I am to them? Because if not, it's not going to end well. And it's going to be very painful for the Cancer Leo person. Always. It will always be that person who really hits it the hardest. I think after a while, the other person will feel it once the Cancer Leo person leaves and no longer is giving. But it's because that person was receiving so much. They were taking so much. Not that they were willing to give in return. And again, in terms of readings, I could totally look at this from like an attraction point of view or trauma and wounds type of area. Again, if you feel like you're in this position a lot and you don't know what to do about it because you have a high configuration of these two signs, a reading would be helpful. I could do it in like a teaching reading where I could focus solely on these two and how they affect your life and what types of signs go well with them, what complements them, what types of things you should look for, what things you should look to stay away from. All of this can help, because otherwise you have to deal with the pain and the rejection, the resentment that forms, because a lot of people, and therefore a lot of signs, cannot match you there. They are incapable of it. They're incapable of giving to the level that you can give. And so it's important to find people who give just as much as you do. And then you form that bond together. And that's where the true devotion lies.